Dan Stubbs, thank you so much for coming on to A New You.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for the invitation, Eva. Really glad to be here.
Excellent. Would you be able to tell me a little bit about your journey and how you came to acquire the important moniker of being the Victorian Disability Workers Commissioner?
Sure. So the role itself commenced in July 2020. So it's been, almost 5 years that I've been in this role, and I was appointed a bit before its commencement. So I built the commission from scratch, and we operate under an act called the Disability Services Safeguards Act of Victoria. And it came out of a parliamentary inquiry which looked into abuse and neglect in disability services right across Victoria. And that parliamentary committee discovered a range of different forms of abuse and neglect in various service situations in Victoria, and as a result recommended the establishment of a commission that would regulate disability workers no matter how they're funded and no matter who they work for right across Victoria.
Mm-hmm. This is interesting. My very first training position was with Women with Disabilities Victoria, and we went around to places that supplied support workers, and we educated them on the prevalence of abuse, sexual abuse of women, more often than not with complex disabilities. And it happens at 4 times the rate that it does normal women, non-disabled women. Yeah, it's quite a epidemic.
A really important issue, and I'm pleased to say we get a lot of input from Women with Disabilities Victoria, a fabulous and strong peak advocacy organisation in Victoria that we have the benefit of drawing a lot from. Yeah.
So can you let me know about you yourself? How did you come to be here in this position?
Oh wow! So probably a number of things have come together for me to be in this role. Before I was doing this, I was working as a community lawyer. I've been in community legal centres in Melbourne and in Sydney, and I headed up a community legal centre in Melbourne, the Inner Melbourne Community Legal Centre, just prior to being appointed to this role. And so having that legal background really helps, but also being a person with disability, so I'm blind, and I've been around different forms of disability organisation, particularly disability advocacy organisations, probably most of my adult life. I kind of think once you've got a disability, many of us just become advocates without even knowing it. And so I've been involved in advocacy, like I say, all that time. And I've also had the benefit of working overseas doing human rights work around disability in developing countries, which also taught me a hell of a lot. And with all that in mind, when this role came up, and I had the pleasure of being approached about it, and I thought it sounds like a great opportunity. I really felt, and have always felt, passionate about the need to advance the rights of, I think, the people with disabilities who are often the most marginalised or the most overlooked or the most isolated, particularly those receiving services, many of whom don't even recognise that they have the right to quality and respect and safety.
Yes. So I'm just going back onto your life. I could imagine going to university as doing a law degree, being blind, not being something that would have been seen much in those days. How was that experience for you?
So I lost my sight when I was halfway through high school.
Okay.
And so that was, kind of a whole new beginning, as many people with any sort of acquired disability and learning about your own disability and learning about all the ways of working and relying on people, or sometimes having to organise other people to do things for you, and all the ways that you learn to operate as a person with disability. Then going to university had its own challenges, and I think any kind of study has its own challenges. And really, for me, it was often about getting the information in the right format that I could actually read.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes finding ways to work with other students had its own challenges, and finding ways to get academics or teachers to actually have some ability to recognise that I'm actually as smart as every other kid in the class, although I'll tell you a secret, often I wondered whether I was. And as we all do, right? We all sort of look at the person next to us or look around us and have that little imposter syndrome. And I wondered whether I was, but really it just, that whole process of convincing others that their job is to teach me, and to get me the information in whatever format I need, so I have access to whatever the person next to me's got access to. And I think that doesn't change in a whole range of different disabilities. The format might change and the method of learning it might change, but the obligation on teachers is still right there, I think.
Absolutely. So can you tell me what the focus of the Commission is, and how does it create change? Yeah,
so as I said, we regulate disability workers, and the idea of what a disability worker is quite broadly defined, and I think that's good. And as I said, it doesn't matter how a worker is funded. So many disability workers are of course funded by the NDIS, but we have to remember there are many thousands of disability workers who are funded outside of the NDIS. For example, there are thousands of disability workers in schools, mainstream schools and specialist schools, in other learning institutions, in health settings, in corrections, prison settings, and in many other places. And I think we forget that there's over 150,000 disability workers in Victoria, and many of them are funded by the NDIS, but we regulate all of them. We require them to abide by a code of conduct, and we take complaints about anyone who contravenes that code of conduct. And it's not just about safety. I think some of the most important complaints we get are about disrespect of people with disabilities. I often see matters come across my desk where someone's being treated increasingly disrespectfully, and it might just start with not giving them their preferred meal, or yelling at them and not providing the sort of service they need. And if we can get in early and ensure that worker changes their practice to a much more respectful kind of conduct, we can actually see those people change, and that improves the life experience of someone with disability, that no longer feels like that someone's doing them a favour, and actually understands that people need to respect me because that's their job.
Yes.
And it's just reasonable. Or if there's poor quality service too. And so if we can get in when we see disrespectful conduct, poor quality service, we can hopefully get in a long way before things escalate to problems of safety and abuse and neglect, which of course also come across my desk. And in those extreme cases, the way we force change, I'm afraid, is we prohibit workers from working anywhere in disability in Victoria. And that will stop a worker working in an NDIS job, or an aged care job, or with kids with disabilities in schools and a whole range of places. And that's a really important power, although what we really like to do is intervene earlier to change practice to ensure that disability workers are getting the training to provide the human rights and the respect that people are owed.
I just have this concept when I hear the word commissioner that you're doing such big work, but what you're describing to me now is like the minutiae. You're talking about how people behave. You're talking about people's attitudes. How does the commissioner gain access to that small part of life?
Well, I think it is big work. It's the most important job I've ever done. And I feel like I don't even get to know enough. I get access to that because, you know, I have the benefit of an amazing team of people in the Commission, and we have very experienced people who receive the complaints and notifications that come into the Commission, and the people that take those calls understand disability services and are able to work through what those complaints are and how they're disrespectful. Because of course people making a complaint often don't know exactly how it relates to maybe contravening the code of conduct, but they know at some level it's wrong. And I always think, you know, someone who comes to us with a complaint, particularly a person with disability or their family member, they're probably doing the hardest thing we're ever asking anyone to do. That's complain about your support worker. And I always am so incredibly grateful and moved by those people who are being so brave and so courageous to bring that to us. And the very least we can do is take it seriously and follow it up. Sometimes we'll follow up with the support worker. If it's required, we'll open an investigation. We employ a team of investigators who go and investigate certain serious conduct, and sometimes we'll escalate it from there. So we don't have inspectors going around all of Victoria observing what's going on in disability services. We're relying on really people with disabilities, their family members, other workers. We have great disability workers in this state who ring us up with concerns about what's going on in services, and we can act on that. We also have managers of workers who will call us up and notify us when they believe a person with disability is being put at risk of harm. So we hear from the sector about problems in the sector because I believe people want to see as a whole, a good quality sector across Victoria. And if someone leaves one service because they've done something terrible, we want people to tell us so that that person doesn't just go and perpetuate that behaviour somewhere else.
How do you see the Commission furthering the vital work of disability workers here in Victoria?
One of the other functions we have is in relation to registration of disability workers, and we're the only ones in the country that have a registration scheme which not only has that requirement for a criminal record check, which is what the NDIS worker screen does, but we also have requirements on workers where they have to meet certain standards, and so those standards include things like they have to have a certain amount of experience or qualifications. They need to have ongoing training, so continuing professional development and some other standards like that. And at the moment that registration scheme is voluntary, and ultimately we see that registration scheme becoming a requirement of disability workers, and ideally it would be a national scheme where we see all disability workers, and this will take years because you need to plan this out so that disability workers know in a certain number of years' time they'll be required to register, and that will over time see a gradual lifting of the standards. And I want to say that so many disability workers already provide a really good standard of service, and to become registered would be quite easy for them. And those workers who we talk to who voluntarily register say, well, I'm proud to be a disability worker and I want to register because I want to show that I'm good. And that's what they're doing. And that whole process of showing that you're good and showing that you're in the sector for the long haul, you're not doing it as a part-time thing for a couple of years, but you're actually a committed disability worker, I think is a great thing to show that this is not just a thing someone does for a year. It's a profession. It's work that takes skill and perseverance and certain capabilities and certain training.
Absolutely. It's not a frivolous exercise at all.
No.
You're dealing with people at their most vulnerable. You're dealing with people when they need the most help, they need the most trust of the person that they are working with. It's almost like you could see the registration as being kind of like a badge of honour, really, in a way, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
And so we have a public register of everyone who's registered. So if you're wondering if your worker's registered, you can just look up the Disability Worker Commission and find the registered worker list there. And I think over time we're wanting actually people with disabilities to say to their worker, you should be registered with the Victorian scheme, to encourage them to make sure that they meet that standard and are proud to be in this sector. It's and it's an incredible sector to work in, and I don't pretend it's not challenging. It can be very challenging, but it's a great way to show that you get it. You're here for the long haul, and you get that this is important work. I think this is some of the most important work in our community, providing support to people with disability.
Absolutely. And I think that on that note there, that this is something, that registration is something that could be shared with people with disabilities to actually encourage them to ask their workers to come on, to get onto the scheme for the reasons that you outlined exactly. How do you think regulating workers will make things better or benefit members of the community who are neurodiverse?
Great question. Thanks, Eva. I think I'm not telling anybody anything to say that neurodivergence is something that we're all still learning about, including in the disability services sector. And I think that people with neurodivergence have a lot to teach workers about. And one of the exciting things that I see in the disability community at the moment is that we're now seeing people who are neurodiverse being actually able to say, I'm not sure what my needs are, but here's the framework, here's the types of issues I face, and learning this whole new skill set for workers on how to engage and respond supportively to someone with neurodivergence is a real opportunity for us in regulating workers. And I think if workers can show that they can respect and provide quality services for anyone with neurodivergence, I think will show that they are some of the highest quality workers, because it shows that true deep respect and responsiveness to someone's disability.
And the preparedness to learn something that might make you uncomfortable.
Absolutely. And also, over time, those needs will change, because people with disabilities learn more about the disability and can be often situation specific, particularly when you have neurodivergence. And I think that needs to be made okay. And I see disability workers who can do that. I'm so excited for those workers who get it. And I think we need to broaden that understanding so that we can have more workers with that sort of skill set.
Exactly, broaden the pool, and then the 43% of Australians that are affected by neurodivergence will have a place to call home.
Yeah. If anyone has a concern about the disability worker, call the Disability Worker Commission. Probably the easiest way to find us online is hopefully everyone watching knows my name. My name's Dan, and you already said my title, Commissioner. Just type into Google Commissioner Dan and you'll find us online.
Thank you for coming in and speaking with us, Dan.
Absolute pleasure, Eva. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank
Cheers.
you. The Victorian Disability Worker Commission plays a crucial role in safeguarding people with disability in Victoria and improving the quality of disability services. It administers the Disability Service Safeguards Act 2018. The Commission administers a Disability Worker Regulation Scheme, which aims to ensure that all people with disability receive high-quality, safe services from skilled and qualified professionals. This extends to all disability workers in Victoria, whether they're formally registered or not. Every worker must adhere to the Disability Service Safeguards Code of Conduct. The Commission serves as the central point for receiving and investigating complaints about the quality and safety of disability services. This includes concerns about a worker's conduct or fitness to practice. When serious risks are identified, the Commission has the power to prohibit workers from providing services. The Commission collaborates closely with other regulators, like the NDIS Quality and Safeguards Commission, ensuring every concern is addressed effectively. The Commission champions a voluntary registration scheme through the Disability Worker Registration Board. This scheme sets robust standards for registered workers covering areas like criminal history, professional development and competency. Registration allows workers to demonstrate their commitment to excellence, providing people with disability an added layer of assurance. The Commission maintains public registers of both registered workers and those prohibited from providing services, empowering informed choices. Beyond regulation, the Commission actively works to educate both workers and the public on the rights and obligations. By encouraging best practice and setting high benchmarks, the Commission continuously strives to lift workforce standards across the entire sector. In essence, the Victorian Disability Worker Commission is an independent oversight body. It is dedicated to protecting people with disability from harm, fostering a safe, skilled and accountable workforce, and ensuring high-quality disability services across Victoria.
In the world of cutting-edge technology, few names ignite public imagination quite like Elon Musk. His involvement has inevitably catapulted brain-computer interfaces, and specifically Neuralink, into global headlines. This high-profile association has certainly helped Neuralink attract significant investment. When Noland Arbor's Neuralink implant was first announced, experts cautiously hailed it as a significant milestone. At the time, Musk himself was publicly reserved, stating simply, "Initial results show promising neuron spike detection." But Noland reveals a different side of the story. He spoke with the billionaire both before and after his surgery, describing Musk as far more optimistic. Yet, Noland is quick to emphasize that Neuralink is bigger than its founder. Waking from surgery, he was initially able to control a cursor on screen simply by thinking about wiggling his fingers. He envisions his chip going even further, hoping it could one day allow him to control his wheelchair, or even a futuristic humanoid robot. Other organizations are also developing the technology. Companies like Synchron are making incredible strides in brain-computer interfaces. Their StentRoad device, for motor neurone disease, avoids open brain surgery. Instead, it's installed via the jugular vein, connecting to the brain's motor region. Synchron CTO says it picks up subtle thought patterns, turning them into digital signals. One user, Mark, is already using it with Apple's Vision Pro to virtually holiday worldwide. He says this tech could be a game changer for paralysis. A glimpse into a future where thought alone unlocks new possibilities.
That's all for this week. If you want to get in touch, send us an email. We'll see you next week.